This week on Lewis on the Law, I've got another great show for you. I have attorney Jamie Perez on with me, and we're going to talk safe and stable families.
Welcome to Lewis on the Law.
You are listening to Lewis on the Law. My name is James Lewis, and I have a great show going for you guys today. I have attorney Jamie Perez, and she is the director of Atlanta Volunteer Lawyers Foundation Safe and Stable Families Project. I said that right?
Yes, congratulations.
I know, right?
It's a long name.
I know, it's a lot to get out. So, okay, can you tell me first a little bit about yourself? How did you get involved with Atlanta Volunteer Lawyers Foundation?
Yeah, so I practiced family law for about 5 years before getting involved with AVLF. But right before I went to work at a private firm, I volunteered with them for about a month out of law school and liked the work they did. I worked in their Safe Families office and helped survivors of intimate partner abuse file for protective orders. And throughout my time in private practice, I was involved in some fundraising efforts for them and volunteered in their guardian ad litem program. So when a position opened up, I was excited to take the chance to be employed with them.
That sounds great. And you guys do really great work. And I've volunteered myself a little bit, of course, not in that program, in your other one. You know,
Traitor.
Yeah, I know, right? I'm a property lawyer, a real estate lawyer. You know, I have to go where my strengths lie.
We'll take all the support in any of our programs.
That's right. Okay, so tell me a little bit about the program that you're part of.
Yeah, so the Safe and Stable Families Project has 5 different programs under that umbrella, and so the most prominent and the biggest one is our intimate partner abuse program. And so that is embodied in what is called the Safe Families Office, which is located inside the Fulton County Courthouse. It's a partnership between AVLF, the Partnership Against Domestic Violence, which is PADV, and the Fulton County Superior Court, where it's the only walk-in clinic of its kind in the state, where it's staffed with lawyers, legal advocates, counselors, social workers. So when victims of intimate partner abuse come to the courthouse to file for a protective order, they are referred there by the court. And when they get there, they get a whole slew of wraparound services available to them as they navigate the protective order process, including that AVLF, which is the largest provider of pro bono civil legal services in Atlanta. We train attorneys at any law firm, whether they're sole practitioners or the biggest law firms in the metro area, to represent our clients at their evidentiary hearings to secure what's called a 12-month protective order.
Wow, that's interesting. Okay, let's back that up a little bit. Tell me a little bit, and Cole was on a couple of weeks ago, so we've already touched on AVLF, but it's such a great organization that I really want people to know about it. Can you tell me a little bit about all the different things AVLF does and offers?
Yes, so we are in our 40th year this year of existence, and we, in addition to the Safe and Stable Families Project, we have the Safe and Stable Homes Project, which is what Cole Thaler and now Ayanna Jones-Lightsey run together. And so we help low-income Atlantans with their civil legal needs. And so it's all about giving people who would not otherwise have access to justice, access to the courts, and put them on equal footing with other people who have resources or can hire attorneys to represent them. But in the intimate partner abuse program, we're not as focused on that aspect because that hits everyone no matter what income level. So we don't eliminate people because of their income, because they're going through some things that make it a little bit more difficult to focus on hiring an attorney in that moment. Yeah,
it is such an important thing because access to justice is such a really, really serious issue. I know just from my experience in dealing with landlord-tenant issues, I'll walk into a courtroom and there'll be 40, 50 evictions going on, and I may be one of 2 attorneys or maybe the only attorney representing a client there. And because I'm representing a client, they'll treat the client differently than they will the 38 other people who are not represented by an attorney. And so that's why I think it's important that even attorneys who don't have a lot of experience get involved with organizations like yours, because they can make a difference. Just your presence there is going to get that person, will put that a person in a better position than they would be without an attorney representing them.
Exactly. And it's such a small amount of an attorney's time to yield, huge dividends essentially on the part of the client. So,
and you can really make an impact in people's lives this way. Right. And I think it's important that we who are in a good situation in life kind of give back.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's get into the intimate partner. It's hard for me to say intimate. I want to say intimate.
Yeah, well, it's funny because we used to call it our domestic violence program, and we just changed the name. Right? It's easier to say, but we changed it because we want to convey to the public at large that this isn't just about violence and what people picture as violence being a physical act. So we changed it to intimate partner abuse to use the word abuse to convey all the different ways that people can be in an unhealthy relationship.
Oh, that is because even when you told me the name of it, my mind immediately goes back to domestic violence. Right. And so, you guys deal with other issues other than violent situations?
Well, they're all a form of violence. It's just it might not be physical violence.
Okay.
So, when people are in an abusive relationship, there's a certain level of abuse that's required to obtain a protective order, but there's plenty of actions and conduct that constitute abuse that don't rise to the level of needing a protective order. And it doesn't mean that we won't help those survivors or that there aren't resources available to them. So, there's financial abuse. It's controlling the bank accounts and making someone hand over their paycheck every week. There's reproductive abuse, intentionally making someone get pregnant so that way they're tied to their abuser.
Oh my God, I've never even thought of that.
Yeah.
That is crazy.
So next time you see someone who has maybe 6 children or a large number of children, hold back your judgment because we don't know what that situation is and what kind of circumstances led to that. And so reproductive abuse is very real. And that's something we've been seeing abusers do after a divorce has been filed, kind of trying to re-engage in that intimate relationship to get the divorce dismissed and get them back. And if they are pregnant or have more children, they become more financially reliant on the other person. So that's one element. There's all of the, tracking phones, putting trackers on cars, things like that, if it's not quite to the level of stalking yet.
My wife has a tracker on my phone. She has the "Where are you now" location thing.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of us have that. There's that healthy line. You gotta be careful not to cross.
Yeah, my wife doesn't abuse me. I don't think. Okay.
Do we need to have a separate conversation?
Yeah, we'll skip that part. Okay. So about the clinic, is it like a walk-in type of atmosphere?
It is. It's a walk-in clinic. There's not appointments unless somebody's scheduled it with a social worker to be there that day. But anyone can come in at any time, and they're going to be greeted with friendly faces, empathetic voices, people who are willing to listen. They're going to sit down with the person who came in and hear what's going on. And then kind of issue spot. So they're going to go through and figure out not just legal issues. I mean, we have an attorney on staff to provide insight and advice on the legal issues they're facing. But, okay, so you lost your job as a result of the abuse. So we're probably going to want to connect you with a social worker if you want, who can help you make your resume current, and
that's
help
really
you,
important. A lot of people don't know how to write a resume. So,
right, and then it's having the clothing for the job interviews because they may have just fled their house and not have anything else available to them, or you're out of money. So how are you going to get back to court for your second hearing, and how are you going to get to these job interviews if that's an issue? So it's kind of finding all those little holes that we need to plug to get this person through the entire protective order process, to then help them become independent and safe from abuse after that.
Okay, so a little bit about the protective order process. What's involved with that?
It's a 2-step process, and it's a lengthy process in terms of the time you spend in the courthouse that day. So when the person comes to the courthouse to file, they are seeking what's called an ex parte protective order. That means outside the presence of the other party. So they're not notifying their abuser, they're there to file. And so they go see a judge that same day. The judge decides whether or not to grant or deny that order. But that whole process between sitting down with us, filling out the pleadings, and preparing them to go see the judge, getting everything e-filed and getting everything to the sheriff to be served can take about 3 to 4 hours. So there's that. And then about 2 weeks later, they are set for a hearing that's called the evidentiary hearing, where they're asking for that ex parte protective order, which is a very temporary order to be extended for up to 12 months. And so they have to come back to court and then potentially spend a whole day in court that second day. So they're missing potentially 2 days of work. They're having to pay for parking at the courthouse for 2 days, childcare if needed. So it's an somewhat intense process, and that's why they need support to see their way through it typically.
Got it. It is an intense process.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're at the end of this first segment. Can you give our listeners a little contact information for Atlanta Volunteer Lawyers?
Yes. So for Atlanta Volunteer Lawyers Foundation, generally, the main intake line is 404-521-0790. And that line is open Monday through Thursday, 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. And then for the Safe Families Office, the main phone number for survivors seeking assistance with that is 404. Let me start over. It's 404-612-4324.
You're listening to Lewis on the Law. My name is James Lewis, and this show is all about empowering you, the listener. And this show in particular empowers you, the listener, with information that may help get you out of a very, very rough situation. Now, I want to go ahead and let you guys know that you cannot depend on the advice or the information you hear on this show to be legal advice. This show only gives you information. If you have a serious legal issue, if you're in trouble, you might want to contact Atlanta Volunteer Lawyers or contact an attorney. If you need help finding an attorney, you can always give me a call. You can contact me on my website at jameslewislegal.com. That's my email address. And you can give me a call at 404-610-0075. There are a lot of attorneys that have been on this show, and I'll be glad to help you. If I can't help you, I'll try and direct you towards an attorney or a resource that can get you some help. When we get back, we're going to talk a little bit more about the walk-in clinic, the intimate partner abuse program. I want to say that so quickly. We're going to finish up with that, and then we're going to get into the family law program. You are listening to Lewis on the Law. My name is James Lewis, and I have a great and awesome, empowering show for you today. I have attorney Jamie Perez on me. She's the director of the Atlanta Volunteer Lawyers Foundation Safe and Stable Families Project. And before we get into that, I want to let you guys know that this show is now streaming online nationally on every single national podcast platform that there is. You can go to iTunes, you can go to Google Play, you can go to Spotify, wherever, and you can find Lewis on the Law. We are even AI compatible. You can say, Alexa, play Lewis on the Law episode 4950. We're turning the big 50 today with attorney Jamie Perez, and this show will start streaming out of your AI device. So it's awesome. We love it. And I love having you here because I really think this show is really important. I think talking about this topic is extremely important, and what you guys do is extremely important. So we were talking about the intimate partner abuse program, the walk-in clinic, Safe Families. And I want you to just kind of run down protective orders again real quickly, because we went through that kind of quickly and we cut it off there at the end. So just run down real quickly the process.
Yeah, so it's a two-step process. Somebody goes into the courthouse the first day, they see a judge, we help prepare the pleadings, and they say, this is why I need an emergency protective order. Mm-hmm. And the judge will typically grant that, or if they're not going to, they can deny it. And then that person has a second hearing, an evidentiary hearing, where the other party has to be served, come to court as well, and then they both present their evidence to the judge, and the judge decides whether or not to grant up to 12 months of an extension on that protective order.
Okay. So what is this Partnership Against Domestic Violence? What is that about?
They are a domestic violence advocacy organization, and so they have shelters in the metro Atlanta area, and legal advocates and social workers. They have shelter managers and a wide variety of resources.
They have a network.
Right, a wide variety of resources for survivors. So we partner with them in that office.
You partner with the partnership.
Right,
I love
exactly.
that. I got so confused when we were talking about that. I'm like, wait a minute, let me get this name straight here.
Yeah, we have so many confusing names.
I know,
Not made for radio.
Maybe it's just that I'm really simple, so.
Could be.
Yeah.
Well, so we go with PADV. That's an easier way to say it.
That is much easier if you can remember it.
Exactly.
Okay.
So yeah, they are our first point of reference when we are looking for shelter for our clients, and they help with transitional housing and things like that. And so together with our pool of resources, we're serving the whole client essentially.
Excellent. Okay, so you kind of ran through 5 programs that AVLF, or you're part of AVLF, does. What were those 5 programs again?
Okay, so in addition to intimate partner abuse, it's the family law program, the guardian ad litem program, our mobile advocacy program, and our social work program.
Okay, well, let's get into the family law program. What exactly is that?
The family law program is really unique because this is a program where we are taking our intimate partner abuse survivors who need long-term legal assistance with their family law matters, such as a divorce or child custody modification or a contempt in a prior order, and pairing them with some of the most experienced family law attorneys in Atlanta. And so what makes that so unique is that nowhere else in the nation is it being done this way. What we hear most when we go out, across the country to different conferences is that pro bono civil legal service organizations have a very difficult time engaging the family law bar. They may be willing to give money, but not so willing to give their time. But in Metro Atlanta, we are not facing that issue. We have members of the American Academy of Matrimonial Lawyers in the metro area who are volunteering their time. We have people saying, I will always have a case. If I don't have a case, then I'll take a new one. So keep them coming. And they come back again after they've handled a case. So we're not giving any representations that these cases are going to be simple, easy, over within a month, nothing like that. They're regular family law cases, and they're giving them their due consideration. They're treating them as paying clients. And so we have a really great legal landscape in the family law bar here in Atlanta. So it's been really successful.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So you help people through divorces?
Yep. And in Fulton County, they have it kind of on a track where you have 30-day, 60-day, 120-day status conferences. So they're definitely moving as they go, which is a good thing. But yep, we see them the whole way through a divorce if we feel they're an appropriate case for our program.
Okay, and child custody too, right? Okay, that's really interesting, and I didn't think that we were going to get into this. I actually had a listener email me a while ago with a child custody question, and I actually turned them over to a family lawyer in the Lawyers for Equal Justice program. But I think maybe we'll address it right here. I mean, they had given up custody of their child, I guess when they were like 16 years old, and they had lots of problems with life situations, alcohol, drug abuse, or whatever. And anyways, they wanted to come back, and they turned their life around. They were working, they were stable, and they wanted to get custody of their child again. And I guess the baby's father's parents had, and the baby's father was nowhere around, but his parents had just custody of the child. Do they have some kind of recourse to actually be able to get custody again? I
don't know if I know the answer to that question, because it sounds like it might be more of a juvenile court matter if it was a termination of parental rights versus a guardianship, which maybe then they could get the child back, or if it was just a custody
so if it
determination.
Because I think it is a guardianship, can they get the child back? I mean, in a situation like that, is there a possibility?
I don't know the guardianship law.
Okay. So
I think there's a possibility. I would certainly look into it.
Now, I kind of ambushed you with that question. I usually prep people, but then when you started talking about it, I'm like, oh my God, I had someone who actually asked that question.
I did one guardianship kind of case a long, long time ago, and I know there's a difference between temporary guardianships and permanent guardianships. So I mean, my initial thought would be I would go look into it, because I would hope there would be a way to, but I wouldn't be able to say for sure.
Okay, yeah, because I had absolutely no idea. I'm like, you're talking to a real estate attorney here. Yeah. If there's a demand for contribution, or
you did the right thing,
a partition
passing them off to an expert in that area.
Yeah, so, exactly. Okay, so you guys offer permanent family law help?
Well, when I say permanent, I mean, so when they get the protective order, they can get custody, they can get child support, spousal support through a protective order. But that, like I said, is usually only extended for up to 12 months. So this is something that is what's deemed a permanent order. It's modifiable at any point, but it's going to go on until someone brings modification action. So it's going to last longer than a temporary or a 12-month protective order would.
Okay, that makes sense. And we've gone through custody a little bit. Let's talk a little bit about the mobile advocacy program you guys have.
Yeah, so I don't know how much Cole talked about this on the show when he was on, but
it's always good to repeat. One thing about these type of shows, when you're talking about legal issues, I mean, people are listening in their car, in their radio, and so I love to repeat these things, because this kind of gets the message out.
Good.
So
I will be happy to.
Yeah, so, go ahead.
I always start with this because this is where this idea kind of was born out of. But they have a program called Standing with Our Neighbors, where they have an attorney and a community advocate based in schools, in underperforming schools in the metro Atlanta area, in an effort to get the performances up, because they're helping with legal issues in the community, but specifically with people who normally would have either been illegally evicted or had to leave their apartment because their landlords won't make repairs. They're helping get these people attorneys to represent them, to fight that, so they can stay in that school district and the children have continuity. So they're stabilizing families and homes, and thereby stabilizing the schools. So a lot of those people are also dealing with, beyond just landlord issues, intimate partner abuse. So what we thought we would do is partner with our attorneys and community advocates in that area with our what I'm calling our one-woman show, Cynthia
A
Padilla-Harrison.
one-woman show? Is it really a one-woman show?
Yes. Our employee Cynthia runs this mobile advocacy
Oh my God,
program.
that sounds like a ton of work.
It is. And so we definitely need help. But she is working with those staff members in those communities to help them identify, to help them refer people to her. She's meeting survivors where they are in the community because there's a lot who can't make it to the courthouse, can't afford parking, can't take the time off work. So she's going to go out and help them get stabilized where they are. She's also working with APD and various law enforcement agencies so that when they have questions, when they're out in the field, they're dealing with the criminal realm. So when they have civil legal questions related to protective orders, she's a quick access for them. They have her cell phone number. She's helping create trauma-informed spaces for when our clients are dealing with law enforcement. And we've gotten a really positive reception. We have a really great relationship with them. And she's building that with other organizations in the community as well, so that those referrals come to us and we're finding people who wouldn't have otherwise found us. So
Okay. So do you actually have a lot of police officers that come and ask her for, I mean, I guess we'd have to ask her, but they'd ask her for information?
Yeah, we feel that we can serve as a resource to them and they're a resource to us. And we have a really great collaboration going on right now with the different zones in the Atlanta Police Department. So yes, they're absolutely emailing and calling her and asking her to come do trainings, and she's going to their roll calls, and she's answering questions on the spot if they're out in the field, and doing what we can to help so that collectively as a community we're all working together. That's
Fascinating. That's really getting into the nitty-gritty of societal work.
Yep. The goal is where they have resources for that when they have those criminal questions, but it's kind of no man's land once you get out there in the civil realm. And so we want to help in that way. And, they help us understand what the limitations are with law enforcement. A lot of it has to do, a lot of better serving our community has to do with communicating with one another and understanding where everybody's coming from, and going from there to collectively serve together.
That is great work. Okay, can you give our listeners some contact information for how they might contact you in case they have issues?
Yes. So it's www.avlf.org, and our intake line for that is 404-521-0790. But then again, it might be easier to call directly the Safe Families office, which is 404-612-4324.
You're listening to Lewis on the Law. My name is James Lewis, and I am your host this week and every week. If you have a serious legal issue, do not depend on what you hear on this show. This show is only designed to give you legal information. It may help you steer you in the right direction, may tell you if you have a legal issue. If you have a serious intimate abuse problem, still having trouble saying it. If you're having a problem like this, contact Atlanta Volunteer Lawyers Foundation. You can also, does Atlanta Legal Aid help in this type of area?
Yes, so Atlanta Legal Aid also helps, but we are the ones in the courthouse running that clinic. We refer back and forth with Legal Aid and work very closely with their family law unit, and we support each other really well. So if they can't help, oftentimes they'll refer to us through what's called the Victims Legal Assistance Network, but that might be for a whole other show.
Yeah, that might be for a whole other show. Okay, good stuff. So make sure you get in touch with them. Get the help you need. Don't depend on hearing this show and saying, oh, I know I need to get a protective order, and try and do it yourself. Go ahead and reach out and then try and get a professional to help you. When we get back, we're going to talk about social work programs and the Guardian Ad Litem program. You're listening to Lewis on the Law. You are listening to Lewis on the Law. My name is James Lewis, and I am your host this week and every week. I've got an awesome show going for you. I have attorney Jamie Perez. She's the director of the Atlanta Volunteer Lawyers Foundation Safe and Stable Families Project. That is a really long title, and I'm glad I got it out smoothly this time.
You're getting better as you go.
I am getting better. After the show's over, I'll have it actually right. And I'll
intimate.
I know,
intimate partner abuse.
I'll be able to say the word intimacy. I know, finally, after all these years. Okay, we've thrown a lot out at them. Oh, first, before we go on, I want to go ahead and let you guys know that this show is streaming on every single national streaming platform you can possibly imagine. Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, those are the only ones that I can really imagine. I'm sure there's more. And we are streaming there. We are AI compatible. You can say, hey, Google, play Lewis on the Law, episode 50. We are the big 50 today. and this show will come streaming through your media device. So when we last left off, we were talking about the mobile advocacy program. Is there anything else you want to add about that, or have we kind of covered that?
The only thing I'll add is, I said it's a one-woman show, and obviously, there's a lot of work to be done by one person. Yeah, so that's a program that we are planning to grow. We've just done our strategic planning at AVLF for the next 5 years, so we recognize the need, and our intention is for that next role to be a social worker to assist, and then ideally have a similar team to the SWAN zones, where we also have an attorney on that team. So.
Now, is this program geared towards every single area in Atlanta? Because when you're saying it's a one-woman show, my mind just boggles at that.
Yeah. With only one person, no. We can't hit all of Fulton County, but we can. That's why we're starting out by partnering in our SWAN zone. So that, has the West Side, MPUV, Thomasville Heights area. So there's different SWAN zones that we...
SWAN zones? That's such a... Why do you call them SWAN
Standing
zones?
with our neighbors. Sorry if I didn't say that before.
No, you did say it. I just didn't connect it to you. The SWAN zones.
So our mobile advocacy program is going to be the Standing with Survivors program. So it's not quite as, it doesn't have a good acronym like SWAN.
Okay. I was just going to ask that. I'm like, is there a clever acronym there?
Yeah, unfortunately, no.
Okay, because it's like SWAN. That sounds so cool.
No, but we're starting out limited. There's a good focus on the West Side so far. So we hope to expand, but that will require other groups of those three positions that we're envisioning to tackle those other areas.
Okay. So you mentioned that there's a social work program component of Atlanta Volunteer Lawyers Foundation.
Yes. So right now in the Safe and Stable Families Project, we have 2 social workers. And so when we brought them on, the initial thought was they would support the work of the intimate partner abuse, guardian ad litem, and family law programs. And that is what they do. And so they are the ones, while we're, preparing the legal pleadings and strategies and arguments, they're helping make sure that our clients can make it.
So you actually have social workers that work in the office?
Correct.
Okay, that is amazing.
Yep. And it's vital now because our clients sometimes can't make it back to their meetings with us without, transportation assistance, or they literally can't miss their work if they can't obtain some sort of financial assistance. So we have referrals to different organizations that can help with all these different social work needs that they have along the way to help them gain independence. So they were, viewed as the supportive role in these programs, but really they're becoming an entity of their own. And so that's why we made it its own program, because they need their own professional support outside of the legal realm. And the work they do is so important, it deserves to be recognized as its own program, as opposed to just support for what we're doing. So it's really grown and taken off, and the community advocates in the housing program are doing similar things to what our social workers are doing if they aren't actually deemed social workers. So we're starting to coordinate the work of all of them together and share the resources so that all of our clients benefit from what that program can do.
Okay, are there barriers that they come up against in doing that?
I mean, yeah, there's, so there's obviously always financial barriers. So when they're referring someone for utility assistance to organizations, if they don't fit within the right zip code, there may not be help for that person, or maybe one of the organizations.
That breaks my heart if they don't fit in the right zip code. Oh, no.
Yeah. And so, or if one of the organizations they refer them to maybe ran out of funding for the time being, so we've got to wait till they get replenished. And so we have our own program our own financial assistance program that helps with a lot of that. But we also have to utilize other organizations as well. So, if some people don't quite fit within the parameters, then, it can be difficult, especially with housing. So shelters are always full, and transitional housing and things like that. It's hard to get in. People need Section 8 vouchers. There's a huge wait list for that. So they do come up against barriers every day. But one of the things I think is so amazing about our 2 social workers, Camille Miller and Mary Koenig, are they come up with creative solutions every day. So we're not leaving clients just stranded on the streets. So they're working through the issue. They're standing with them until we come up with some sort of solution for them.
And I think that's really important. A lot of people don't think of social work or the law as needing creative solutions, but you really do. You have to actually tap into that creative component.
Oh, yeah, especially. I mean, not just social workers, and you said the legal aspect. I mean, when you're strategizing and you think you're up against a losing fight, you got to come up with a way to craft a winning argument at least. So,
Yeah. Exactly. Okay. I think you mentioned something about after protective orders. The social workers actually help in after the protective orders
Yeah.
issued?
So one of our social workers is contacting our clients in between the day they come in and obtain the ex parte order and the day they come back for their hearing. So that's to get them all the way through it. So then our other social worker follows up with them after the fact. So a lot of people leave the courthouse that day with a 12-month order, and they don't know that the other person is violating, and they have recourse against that. So they feel defeated because this person is violating it, and that they forgot or they're not aware that they can come back to court and address it. Or maybe they left with the protective order and it says that the other person has to pay child support or spousal support, but they're not doing it. And so they feel they have no other choice than to go back into that abusive situation for financial support. So what we're doing is having that second social worker follow up with them after they get it, say, are there other resources you need to maintain your safety and independence during this time? And has this other person been violating the order? Here's how we can help. We can prepare a contempt pleading for you. You can come back. We'll get a hearing on the calendar so we can address this with the court so you don't have to just go back, which is unfortunately what some people think is the only option. And so then she's also following up with them towards the end of that 12-month period because people can file a motion to extend their protective orders beyond 12 months. And so she's calling to say, do you still feel you need protection? Here's a motion that you can file, and our legal staff can assist.
Oh, okay. And so she actually ties them into other legal resources that may be available?
Yep, exactly.
Okay. That sounds like a ton of work for very few people.
Yeah.
And that's why it's important that people get involved and volunteer, right?
Yeah, it is very important, and it is a ton of work, and they do a great job. And but we have to guard against burnout. So we do have to limit the number of clients that we do follow up with because the Safe Families Office sees, I believe, over 3,500 clients a year. And so they can't contact every single one of those clients or else they wouldn't be able to keep up. So we have parameters for who is, being followed up with, who's paired with an attorney, because we unfortunately don't have all of the resources to meet the demand.
Okay. And I think we kind of went through this, but I actually think we went over it too quickly in the mobile advocacy section. And I wanted to kind of go back and touch on this, but you have an in-school program, right?
Yes. So that's the housing side.
Okay.
So they are based in the schools. Their offices are in the schools, which just means they're not necessarily creating curriculum per se for the school, but that's a central spot where the whole community typically ends up coming at some point where they can find access to justice. So rather than having to find their way to downtown somewhere or into our offices, they're right there in the community. And when they drop their kids off for school, they can go find that resource, and then they'll connect them to us if it happens to be a family issue. Yeah,
because it seems like that would be a great place to find out about family issues that are going on, especially custody issues, maybe family abuse and that kind of thing. Yeah, so that's incredible. Okay, we are almost at the end of this segment, but I think, is there anything else we need to go over on the social work program side?
I think we've covered it for the most part.
Go ahead and give them some contact information for you once again.
Okay, so AVLF is avlf.org, and then 404-521-0790 is our main intake line, and the Safe Families Office is 404-612-4324.
You're listening to Lewis on the Law. My name is James Lewis, and once again, I have to throw out this disclaimer each and every single segment that if you have a serious legal issue, do not depend on what you hear on this radio program. Go ahead and contract with an attorney, find an attorney. If you have a family law issue, if you're a victim of domestic violence or some type of abuse, go ahead and contact Atlanta Volunteer Lawyers. Whatever you do, don't take the advice or the information you hear on this show as legal advice. This show is only designed to give out information to you guys. If you need an attorney, you can always contact me at jameslewislegal.com. You can email me at james@jameslewislegal.com, or you can give me a call at 404-610-0075. If I can't help you with the legal issue, I can go ahead and direct you towards an attorney who can help you with your legal issue. When we get back, we're going to talk about guardian ad litem programs, and we're also going to do a brief rundown of everything we've gone through because we've thrown out a lot of information to you guys. So, once again, you're listening to Lewis on the Law. You You are listening to Lewis on the Law. My name is James Lewis, and I am your host this week, that's for sure, and maybe every week, who knows, into the future. I've got a great show going for you, and it's really in the spirit of empowering you, the listener, because it's something I believe in, and I actually believe in the program that my guest is a director of. I have attorney Jamie Perez on with me, and she's the director of the Atlanta Volunteer Lawyers Foundation Safe and Stable Families Project. So I wholeheartedly believe in what you're doing as an awesome thing, and really part of how attorneys become engineers of their society. And like I think we've mentioned it. It's one of my quotes that I live by and kind of use it to guide me. But you guys are definitely part of that social engineering of our society.
Yeah, I appreciate that phrasing.
Yeah,
I think that's awesome.
Well, I'd like to take credit for it, but a much more intelligent attorney came up with that concept, and I just kind of ride on their coattails. But if it wasn't for those attorneys, I would have not been admitted to law school. I would not have the opportunities that I've had in life, because of people like that who are the true giants. But what you do is incredible, and you contribute a lot towards our part of society, this little part of society that we live in here, Atlanta, Fulton County, or whatever. What you do actually makes a difference, and when you help one person, who knows what can happen with that one person you help.
Yeah, thank you. And I mean, I appreciate the credit, but yeah, it's an entire team. My team's growing to a size of 12 this August, so I have to thank all of them for all the work they do to support survivors. So. Nice.
And I actually had an attorney come on not too long ago. I'm not going to point him out or anything like that, but he's like, yeah, as attorneys, we don't really do anything in society. I'm like, what? What? You've just gone against my mantra of us being social engineers, the architects of our society. There's greatness possible here, and
he's got to get connected to the right organization.
Yeah.
ABLF is out there.
That's right. If you want to be a social engineer, they're waiting for you.
Yep.
Okay, excellent. Before we get into the Guardian Ad Litem program, I want to kind of take us back to where we've been. Go ahead and talk about the different programs again that you guys do.
Okay, so our Intimate Partner Abuse Program is...
That's the one that I am having trouble saying, Intimate Partner Abuse Program. I've got it now. I just have to slow it down.
We're starting to call that IPA, too.
Oh, okay. Well, that's easy.
I'm giving you the cheat sheets
program.
later.
Yeah, right?
So that is embodied in the Safe Families Office in the Fulton County Courthouse. The survivors of intimate partner abuse who are interested in obtaining any kind of help, but, presumably they're thinking about filing for a protective order, go to the Fulton County Courthouse and they will refer you to our office. And so that's where we have wraparound services. We have legal services, social services, access to shelter. So it's a really great resource in Fulton County for people who need to file for protective orders here. And then
now I want to stop you there because I think talking about protective orders is extremely important, and part of what I want to do is get out really important information. So I'm going to ask you this: can a person file a protective order on their own?
Yes. Yep. Okay. They can absolutely file a protective order on their own. And so they don't have to accept our services. It's just that we can help craft their pleadings and give them the strongest argument up front for why they need a protective order. But yes, absolutely. Anyone can go file for a protective order and they don't need legal counsel to do it. Okay.
Now, would you suggest that? Because there's going to be a lot of people in crisis. So would you suggest they just go ahead and do that?
So it depends on their situation. There are certain circumstances where we would advise someone not to file a protective order. So if doing so is going to put them in greater danger, then that may be a situation where we wouldn't advise to go do it. But if you're thinking about doing it and you have a safe way to get to the courthouse, you might as well go and talk about it. So absolutely, you can go, and most people who have attorneys don't have their attorneys accompany them at that ex parte level because they can do that part on their own.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure, and this is really important information that I want to get out, and we've gone through a lot quickly. Okay, what are some of the other programs?
In addition to that, we have the Family Law Program, which is an offshoot, which serves only survivors of intimate partner abuse who have gone through the Safe Families Office. And so that is where they can seek legal assistance to file their divorces, contempt actions, modification of custody or support, legitimation defense. So we have access to some of the best attorneys in Atlanta practicing family law for our clients through that program. And then we have the mobile advocacy program where we're getting out into the community. We're building connections with the people in the community to identify people who are victims of intimate partner abuse and might need some assistance or advice and can't get to the courthouse or didn't know about the Safe Families Office. So we're meeting them where they're at and being a resource to the organizations in the community. And then our social, go ahead.
Oh, yeah. I wanted to ask you a question about family law because I feel like that is, to me, I helped with, when I was in law school, I helped with a family law case, and it was incredibly emotionally taxing, frightening, maybe even some of the stuff that was
It's
said.
not for everybody.
Yeah. It just seems like it is, for an area of law, it seems like one of the heaviest areas of law in terms of emotional impact or emotional.
That's why if you ever hang out with family law attorneys at one of their group functions, they are a boisterous bunch because they keep it as light as they can.
Because they deal with some seriously heavy issues. When you go into the family, that's where you really see the breakdown of where things go wrong for people.
Exactly. Yeah, no, it's definitely not for everybody. And the people who do it because they feel they're making a genuine difference in people's family lives.
Absolutely. If you make a difference in the family, I mean, the family is a basic building block of society.
Exactly.
So there you're really doing it.
Yep.
I mean, and I'm going back into my philosophy of law. The structure of society starts with the family.
You're right. You're right on.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so I interrupted you.
Oh, it's okay. I was just going to finish up with our social work program. So that is the program where we have our social workers, and now they're going to be working with our community advocates on the other team, and they're the ones who provide all the access to the other resources needed to get people through the legal process. And, even outside of the legal process, these are the tools they need to move on with their lives after going through trauma, whether it be with their landlord or with an abuser.
Okay. Now, well, we've gone through all that. What about the guardian ad litem program?
Yeah,
what is that first? First, what is a guardian ad litem? A guardian, but ad litem. It sounds really fancy to me.
Say that one 3 times fast.
Right. That's even worse than intimacy.
I am not going to tell you what it means because I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know what the translation is. But guardians ad litem are people who are trained to represent the best interests of the children in contested custody disputes. So they are not the child's lawyer. They're not a lawyer for either of the parties. They're not a lawyer for the court. And they don't even have to be a lawyer, but through AVLF you do. So we only train lawyers to do this work. But they are literally representing what is the best interest of the child. So when mom and dad come into court and say, I want sole custody, no, I want sole custody, and the court can only see what's right in front of them. They can't go interview the teachers. They can't go into the schools. They can't go into the homes and see what we're dealing with. So they ask for, in cases where the parties cannot afford to pay a guardian, they ask for us to appoint one pro bono. And so we're out training attorneys to do this work. It's a 2-day intense training. And so they are then prepared to go do an investigation. So they interview all the witnesses of the parties. They will talk with the teachers. They'll talk with the children, and they'll kind of assess what's going on and get a better picture to the court. So the court heavily relies, Fulton County Superior Court heavily relies on our guardians to do that work. And
wait a minute, don't tell me this is a one-woman show either. Okay.
Well, this one's a combination of a few of us who kind of do it in the background. But, our guardians are self-sufficient for the most part. So we do follow up with them and check in as we see their cases headed to trial. And we will go, watch their trial, or we'll go prep them for cross-examination. Any questions they have along the way, we're available to provide that advice and assistance. But really, they're running this show on their own. So once they take the case, they get to go lead their own investigation. And then we get feedback from the judges and from the attorneys, if there are attorneys involved in the case. So we can give feedback then to our guardians. But they're doing really important work to do what's best for the children. And so the children may not see it that way, and it depends how old they are. And the adults certainly, usually at least one of the adults is angry because, they made a recommendation that wasn't to be with that parent as much time as they wanted. So it's a thankless job in a lot of ways. But I know that our judges are incredibly grateful for the work they do. So.
Incredible. So does the court request your help? Or
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep. So when they determine that the parties aren't able to pay for guardian ad litem on their own, then they put in a formal request to us. We evaluate it because there is an income limitation there. And so we check that they're within the income limits, and then we can go to our pool of volunteers and say, we give them a rundown of the case, and people respond that they're interested. And people who practice family law regularly want this experience. This is something that's good for them to get experience doing, so then they are hired to do it privately later on. And then there's a lot of big firm attorneys who enjoy the work. And so they do it whether or not they're ever going to practice guardian ad litem work full time. So.
Okay. That seems like that's a really heavy responsibility, making the custody recommendation for a child. What kind of factors play into that?
So there's actually a statute that lists all the factors, and so I don't have them all off the top of my head. But
you know what? Maybe we'll have to leave that for another time, because I just realized that we are running out of time. So, and I want to give you the opportunity to give our listeners contact information for your program.
Yes, no problem. So avlf.org is our website, and our phone number is, our main intake line is 404-521-0790. And the Safe Families Office direct line is 404-612-4324.
You're listening to Lewis on the Law. My name is James Lewis. And once again, I have had a great time. Thanks, Attorney Perez, for coming on with me and talking about a really important program and important work that you do in the community.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been great.
Yeah, it's been awesome. And before we leave, I have to thank the guys that make this happen. The great antagonist of video over there, Mr. Anthony Cook, going ahead and making sure that I look pretty in the spotlight. There's no chance of that whatsoever. You might, but me, there's no chance of that. And the soothsayer sound, Mr. Sam Davis, pushing all the buttons and making the knobs happen, keeping the dream alive. Love you guys.